Let us move on to the next chapter called Collection Services in Banks. We have seen payment products so far. Now we are moving into collection services in banks. As the name goes, what is meant by collection? Let us see what is a collection and what are the different type of collections being involved in any type of banking transactions. Okay. So the various products offered as a part of collection services by banks. What are the various products offered as a part of collection services by banks? Let us start with transfer, a simple transfer. Then local clearing, something called local clearing. Then we have check truncation system. In a short form, we call it as CTS. Then we have ECS. ECS is electronic clearing system. Then we have check collection. Then we have CMS. It means cash management services. And we have bill collection. Okay. And we have forex. So there are various products available to the customers under collection, and these products are being handled by almost all banks in India. It is not that one bank is not doing this particular product or another product. Every bank is nowadays equipped with handling all these type of products under collection. We will see one by one how these products are offered to customers and how it is being operated across the banks. You can see this picture on the slide. The following figure represents the various products offered by banks as a part of collection service. Start with transfer, then local clearing, we have check truncation system, we have electronic clearing services, we have check collections, and we have cash management services, and we have bill collection. You heard about CTS, where you heard about ECS, where you have heard about CMS. So these are the jargons used by different banks, by all the banks rather, for payments. Okay, let's move on. Again, we are just coming to the example of a buyer and seller concept. You think that buyer and seller are involved in any of the transactions, right? So let us talk about a buyer and a seller doing a business. Okay. So buyer, as the name goes, naturally he buys goods from the seller who sells the goods. And the buyer need to make a payment to the seller, obviously, right? What are the different ways in which the buyer is going to make a payment? As far as the seller is concerned, what are the different ways available to him to collect this particular payment? This is how to answer all these questions. To answer these questions, we need to understand the product under collections. Now, let us talk about transfer. Let us assume that this buyer and seller, that is this buyer and seller, both of them are having an account with X bank. So what will happen? They have it, buyer and seller both are having an account in X bank. So if the buyer gives a check favoring seller, and the check is complete in all respects, that is, the date is there, beneficiary name, amount in words, amount in figures, then signature, then the bank name is mentioned with the account number. Okay, all these available in the check and the check is in order. What happens? The bank accepts the checks from the seller because the check is moving from the buyer to the seller. So once the check is handed over by the buyer, once a check is given to the seller by the buyer, and the bank accepts the check, and what happens in the bank? The bank debits the account of the buyer and credits the account of Mr. Seller. So what happens now? Debit has occurred in buyer's account, means whatever transaction or whatever purchases he made, he has made the payment, so that there is a debit in his account. Similarly, when you talk about the seller's account also got credited, so that whatever he sold, whatever product he sold, he got the money for that. So his account got credited. So both debit and credit occurred in the same bank. So this is very smooth. This is a simple transfer, it is called. Alternatively, what the buyer can do now, there is a facility called online transfer is available, right, for almost all customers and in all banks, because no bank is not giving this facility. This facility is available to all customers, and this facility is available in all banks. So what buyer can do, instead of writing a check, he can very well do an online transfer. That is, he can go to his computer. That is, he can do it through his laptop, or he can do it through his mobile, because nowadays mobile banking is also available to all customers. So he can transfer the funds from his account to the seller's account, which happens in a fraction of a second, not even a minute. It goes straight. So that solves your writing a check, handing it over. Maybe the seller may misplace it, or he maybe lost it. All that problems will get erased when you start using online transfer banking. So the alternatively, the buyer can do an online transfer, so that the seller can get the money immediately. So this is a simple transfer mechanism, which is one of the product under collections. The transfers also happening, what we saw is within the same branch. It has happened in the same branch, so that transaction was very smooth. Similarly, if the transfer is going to happen from one bank to another bank, how it happens? This is also possible, because the transfer can make use of centralized computer system, and it can take place in the following ways. What we saw is within the branch, the transfer can also take place within the bank, that is from one branch to another branch. Even the transfer can take place within the banking system as a whole. It means the transfer can takes place between State Bank of India and Canara Bank, wherein two banks are involved. So how that will happen, that we are going to see now. So transfer can take place within the same branch. Transfer can take place two different branches of the same bank, and the transfer can also take place from bank to another bank, one bank to another bank. How this is going to take place? Maybe one is through online, through RBI Net. RBI Net in the sense, whenever you do a transaction through an internet, whether it's an online transfer or any other transaction which you involve online, electronic banking, RBI is getting involved, because you are the two banks. You can see the picture in between. The moment is the money is moving from one bank to another bank, here to here, and then as the picture says, here to here, but involving the center place one, that is RBI Net. This is bank X, this is bank Y, whereas this is the Bank of India, RBI Net. Understand? So what we saw so far is the transfer, simple transfer, and we discussed about transfer from one branch to another branch, and we discussed about transfer from one bank to another bank. Now let us move on to another concept called local clearing. The seller, when he gets a check from the buyer, he goes to his bank and deposits his check. Maybe the instrument can be a check, or it can be a demand draft, or it can be a pay order. See, the seller deposits the check or the DD or the pay order into his account given by the buyer. So what happens in this case, the buyer and seller, they are having two different set of banks. We will consider B is with SBI, whereas seller is with Canara. Okay, now how this money is getting settled? You think that how this money, whether somebody is going from Canara Bank to collect the money from State Bank, or State Bank is going to send the money to Canara Bank in a physical form? Can you just think it over? No, It is not so. That is the reason we saw earlier, there is a clearing house which comes into picture. See, for our example, we will just instead of SBI, we will say Indian Bank. What happens between the buyer and seller? The buyer gives a check in favor of the seller. The seller goes to his bank, Canara Bank, he deposits the money in Canara Bank. Canara Bank in turn goes to clearing house, where they find Indian Bank is also coming to clearing house. Okay, and this clearing house is being conducted by Reserve Bank of India, wherever RBI has the presence. When there is no RBI, for example, if you take Tamil Nadu, in Chennai we have the RBI office, whereas if you go to Coimbatore, we do not have RBI. So SBI is the clearing house over there. In Coimbatore, SBI is the clearing house. So both Canara Bank and Indian Bank go to SBI. They participate in the clearing house activities. They exchange their checks among themselves. So whatever money to be given to Indian Bank, Canara Bank will give. Whatever money to be given to Canara Bank, Indian Bank will give. So at the end of the day, it is giving and taking, and finally there is a settlement happens. That settlement, from the settlement, this Canara Bank is getting the money from Indian Bank so that he can credit to seller's account finally at the end of the day. So after the settlement, Canara Bank comes back to his office. He got the money. That is how that is happening. All banks, they have an account with clearing house. Account with clearing house. So in our example, the money has to move from Indian Bank to Canara Bank, right? So what will happen? In the clearing house account of Indian Bank, there is a debit. For the equal amount, there is a credit in Canara Bank's account with clearing house. So the clearing house money goes to Canara Bank. Canara Bank in turn gives the money to the customer. That is the way the local clearing transactions are happening. So the money moves from one person to another person. Okay? Understand? Fine.